Hi guys, I am out in the garage and my goal is to try to make a cable to go from my Wouxan radio to a USB sound card that I connect to a Raspberry Pi to use it as a TNC. And what I need to do is to put two stereo connectors on. I need to figure out the wiring and solder it up. This wire is very, very thin and very flimsy, and this is probably going to be very hard to do. But I'm only doing this as a test because I want to do some APRS testing. So when I go to the parks, if this works, then I'll invest in the Mobilink TNC3 and the appropriate cable and everything for the radio. But I just want to see if this works. So I'm going to do some testing. If this works, then I can take the Raspberry Pi and the radio and everything to the park with me and just try it and see if I have any, if I'm able to make any contacts via APRS. The parks I'm going to, there's not a lot of APRS sites around. I can hit some repeaters from the park, so I'm hoping that I can hit some APRS from the park as well, especially if I'm up high. So I guess we'll have to just give it a try and see what happens. So I have this diagram. It's for a TRRS plug though. So I'm not going to be doing this for a TRRS. Like I said, I want dual stereo. So I'm going to do that and see if I can't make it happen here. Let's see if any of this is right. Let me strip some of these down. These are so tiny. These are going to break when I'm going to try to strip them. No, maybe not. Oh, there's one. I should tin these as I go so the wires don't get all goobered up, but they're so thin, man. Got it, a little piece of wire. It looks like these are 32 gauge. Those are some tiny wires. I'm surprised Adam, K6ARK, hasn't made an antenna with a wire this small. And one more. I'm out in the garage and it's actually cold. It's actually cold out here in the garage. So now let's trace these out and see if they're anywhere near close to what this diagram says. I need to mark the colors on it here. So let's go to my sweet. So let's start with let's start with this one. So I think that's my cable. Basically, I think that's my cable. So now I'll go in and hook this up to the Raspberry Pi and to my Wouxan radio and see if it'll decode anything. And if it works, then I'll talk about it more from that point. But for now, I think I'm going to take it right as it is, make sure no wires are touching, and go try it before I like tape it all up and try to shrink wrap it or something, try to make it look, keep it from falling apart, because these wires are so brittle. If I just tug on it, it's going to break. But I think if I overlap them and shrink wrap it, it'll help hold them tight. But let's go test it. So my cable is working, and I'll show you this setup, and then I'll switch over to the computer here. So here's my KG-UV9D. I have it connected to my home antenna, my base antenna. I was using some whips, but it wasn't working very well. I wasn't receiving a lot of APRS. So I'm receiving better with the base antenna, but even on transmit with my base station, I have to turn the power up to about 25 watts before another APRS station can hear me. So it's not, and that's using a full-on Raspberry Pi with a Signal-Link interface, so the audio should be good, but just there's not a lot of APRS in this area. So there's little chance that anybody is going to be able to hear me on the handheld doing APRS. So I don't know if APRS is worth it for me in this area, but this is a good way to test and find out. So let me switch over to the computer and we'll see how it's set up there. Okay, so here you can see I'm running Pi APRS by KM4ACK. This was really easy to set up. It uses Direwolf. As you can see here, I am receiving stations. I have gotten some warnings that the audio input level is too high. Now I'm just using a straight cable, and I'm sure I could put some circuitry in there to reduce, to attenuate the sound coming from the radio. I've also done some send tests. I have to enable Vox on the handheld, and I can do some sending tests. Now I have another system set up, and it is receiving my send tests, and I can receive tests from there. But again, this is only 5 watts, and there's no other digipeaters around me that are picking up my signal. On my home base radio, I have to get it up to 25 watts before anybody can hear me. But this was pretty easy to set up. I mean, there really was nothing to it. I didn't have to edit the config file for Direwolf. The only thing I had to do was when I started this up, I had to go into the settings here and change some of these settings just for my location, because KM4ACK's information was in here, the path and everything else. But other than that, that was it. And then you start it up and it starts receiving. I'm in this area and nobody is hearing me. I have to, like I said, I have to boost my power on my base radio to 25 watts before anybody hears me. And for some reason, these guys aren't hearing me, or they're not reporting. The station that hears me is the same station that hears that guy, which is this guy up here. Here's Hillman State Park I go to. There's Raccoon State Park that I go to. There's no digi-repeaters very close by from what I can see. Tomlinson State Park is over here. So I highly doubt that APRS is going to work for me in this instance. Now, I could do, I have done some testing with JS8 call and sending APRS messages through JS8 call, and that has worked. It doesn't seem to be 100% reliable though, especially when running 10 watts. So that again, it's iffy. So, but just because of the lack of APRS in this area, I don't think it's going to be very useful for me. I just don't think it's going to be something I'm going to be able to use. Well, but there's another ham radio experiment for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is Tango Oscar Mike, 73. Take care, and Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Tango Oscar Mike,